Hey guys, Steve from Cowie Performance. You need this pump upgrade kit. Don't let this happen to your engine. Do you know why our kit is better than OEM? This is the KP shaft and this is the OEM shaft. Right off the bat, we use a material that is twice as strong as OEM. Also, we use a dipped and rolled moly thread on here, which is extremely strong. Next is our one-step hex, which is made for easy removal and installation of the impeller so that you do not have to flip over the impeller. You can do it all in one position. While Kawasaki uses a slot in their impeller shaft that can round or get damaged when you put it in the vise. As you can see here, the KP shaft has a threaded portion on the end of the shaft, while the OEM shaft does not. This kit was designed, engineered, manufactured, and tested right here at Cowie Performance. The biggest benefit of this kit are the threads right here on the shaft, which will prevent the impeller from shoving into the engine. This is a very complex setup. Like all of our products, this was designed and drawn in our 3D modeling software, which goes onto our prototyping stage and then onto our real-world testing before we even get it to you. This is our basic kit here. It comes with the shaft, the nut, the screws you're going to need, all the O-rings, the bearing, the bushing, and the cones. If you order the full kit, you're going to get the grease syringe, you're going to get the bushing, you're going to get the main bearings, and you're going to get the seals. First, we're going to remove the three 10mm hex bolts holding this cone on. Now we will be removing this cone using two flathead screwdrivers. One will go here, the other will go here, and you're going to twist out just like that. Okay, now we're going to spin this thing around. We're going to remove the trim seal here and the impeller boot. Now we're going to hold this impeller shaft in the vise on the flat, just like this. And then we're going to use our impeller wrench to remove this impeller. Next, we're going to pull up on this housing here to remove the shaft out of the housing. Now we will use our snap ring pliers to remove the circlip. Now to remove these seals, we're going to insert a screwdriver like this on the bushing to pop these seals up. Do not use a screwdriver and hammer it on the outside of this seal here, otherwise you will damage this pump. Next, bring your pump over the press and we will be pushing out the old bearings and then pushing in new ones. Using your old shaft, we will install it like this. And push out these bearings. Bearings are now out. Let's clean some of the grease out of the housing on the front and the back. Now we will spray the inside of the housing with some fogging oil before we install the first bearing. Some pumps will only accept one case bearing. If that is the case, you will only order a single bearing setup and only be installing one bearing in the housing. This housing will accept 2 bearings, which we will install right now. We'll be installing the bearing on our installation tool here. Please do not use a hammer and a socket. To install our second bearing, we will repeat the process. Now you're going to want to add some grease to your seal before installing. And since this is something everybody should have, we will use a 30mm socket to install the seal. And you just have to make sure that it sits on the outside of the seal just like that. Spring always faces out. You can see the spring right here. More grease. Grease on the seal. Spring facing out. More grease. Grease on the seal. And spring facing out. Now we're going to reinstall our snap ring. Make sure the snap ring is fully seated by pushing out on it and make sure it's seated in the groove. If not, push pressure on the snap ring until it's fully seated. Flip the pump over, take the small O-ring and the impeller shaft, install this O-ring on the shaft. Apply a little bit of grease on this O-ring. Now we're going to install this in the pump. If you only have one bearing in this housing, you will need to install this shim. Otherwise, omit this step. Flip over the pump. We will now install our impeller. Since we have the KP one-step hex, we're going to put this right down on the spline tool. Now we're going to use our 13/16 socket to tighten this shaft down by hand, and then torque to 110 foot-pounds. Grab your aluminum cone here, included in the kit. We're now going to install the 2 O-rings. The first is the largest of the O-rings, which is going to go on the outside here, like that. Now there's a tricky O-ring that goes all the way in the bottom down here that we're going to show you where that goes, and that's your second largest O-ring, and we're going to work this into the bottom here. all the way in the bottom here. Now we're going to take our tiny bearing here and we're going to very carefully install this. And we're going to push it all the way down and you're going to feel it click and pop into place. Before installing this, we're going to add a little grease around the perimeter here. Set this down on the shaft, just press it on, just like that. You're going to want to line up these screws here. Included with the kit are 6 screws. There's 2 different sizes. The older pumps are going to use these 5mm screws here, and the newer pumps are going to be using the 6mm. For this pump, since it's a double bearing setup and it is a newer housing, we're going to be using the 6mm screws. Make sure these screws are nice and tight. Now we're going to grab our hex nut and we're going to install it on the shaft now. If properly installed, the bearing will be just about flush with the bottom of the mating surface on this piece of aluminum here. We're going to torque this nut to 50 foot-pounds. Next, grab the plastic cone and the last O-ring. Install that here. Add some grease to hold the O-ring in and a little bit on the threads as well. This one we're going to install by hand. Just be careful. You just want to make it just tight. The Loctite will do its job in holding this cone on. Remove your pump off the spline tool. Reinstall or install a new trim seal. Install your impeller boot. And there you have it. We hope you enjoyed our jet pump upgrade video. If you have any questions or comments, please shoot them in the comment section below. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel.